All right, hey guys, Jason here. We're up here at J.C. Lewis Ford in Statesboro, Georgia, and we are looking at used cars. This is all used. This is all used. The reason we're over here in the used section is we are going to be talking about a real world experience that I just went through on selling a vehicle to a dealership and what you can expect and what the new norm is today. So, quick little breakdown on it. I have lost 3 of my 4 parents in the last year, okay? I've lost my mom, and then shortly after I lost my real dad, and then shortly after, 6 months ago, or actually about 5 months ago, we lost my stepdad. So with my mom and my stepdad, both of them being gone, that kind of wiped out everything, that whole family part there, that household is all deceased now. So, and there are 8 of us children through them. So they had left us basically 2 things. One was a minivan, the other one was a small little house that they lived in. We took those assets, we divided them up amongst all 8 of us and spread it out, and that's what happened. Well, it took a while to get all the paperwork done and everything on the van and get all that stuff done and get all the approvals. And anyway, we just sold it yesterday. I sold that van yesterday. I sold it to Franklin right down the road. But we're going to talk about that deal, and we're going to talk about what we normally see, what's happening to every one of these people right here. Every one of these trucks, from behind Tina's ZR2 way down there, all the way around, all of these truck owners that traded these trucks in have gone through what I've just gone through. We're going to talk about those numbers, okay? Even if it's people with a Raptor and a Raptor, like I said, we know who that Raptor belonged to. He's a buddy of ours on the channel. He follows the channel. I see him up at the dealers a lot. So here's the reality. I called every place. Okay, I called Carvana, CarMax, or I went through online, Carvana, CarMax, Edmunds, AutoNation. I did all this stuff. Okay, everything online. Best we could get for that van was $35,600. That was at AutoNation, believe it or not, was the best price. AutoNation, and that was in Hilton Head, South Carolina, which is about a little over 2.5 hours from here. I thought, well, let's take it up to Franklin. I'm at Franklin all the time, and I love those guys up there. This is not a hit on Franklin, because every dealership does this. I'm not by any means knocking Franklin, but it's going to show us the reality. So I bring it up there. I show it to them. I tell them I'm looking for 35.6, and I show them literally, here is the quote right here. Got it right here. Here's the quote from AutoNation for 35.6, and can you guys match it? Well, they take it for a little test drive. I'm watching the guy out the window, and he's sitting there, and he's doing one of these kind of things, and he's like, there, and he puts a circle on the sheet, and he walks by, and he's like, oh, here, and he puts a circle on the sheet, okay, and he's doing his stuff, and then they come back, and they're like, you're looking for 36 or 35.6, and we noticed this, and then you got this little scratch, and there's a little bitty bump if the light catches it just right here that's not perfect, and they mark it down, they're like, we'll give you 35. I'm like, well, you know what? 35, it's being divided 8 ways. That's like whatever that is, 70, 75 bucks a person. And I don't have to drive 2.5 hours to get to 600 bucks all the way to Hilton Head. That's actually 5 hours of driving to save me 75 bucks. No, you can take it for 35. I gave it to them for 35. So they took it, done. Checks in the bank, problem solved, funds distributed, everything is normal there. I looked today, that van is now on their website. It's available on their website. I was curious, what are they putting on? How much do you think they put it on the website for, with it being, they bought it from me yesterday for $35,000, knocked me down from my 35.6, which all dealers will do. That is their job, to make money. Again, nothing against Franklin. I love them. This is just giving you the reality of it. I am not unhappy. This is how the game is today. So they knocked it down to 35, and they got it listed today. What do you think that number is? Just take a second, put it down below. I'm just curious. Before you even finish watching this, just for the heck of it, comment what you think they have it for sale for. I'm just curious to see. You're going to find out in a second. I'm going to tell you, but what do you think that number would be that they actually put it up for? Okay, well, the number is 42.5, 42,419. Call it 42.5. 42,419, and they say, oh, and it was a list price of $2,000 more, and they scratch it off like it's a deduction, like a sales tactic. Very cool. It works. People buy that stuff, and that sales tactic does work. Basically, in a nutshell, $7,500. $7,500 is the number that is the amount of dollar profit that they are going to make off of my trade-in. Off of my trade-in, $7,500. That's how much you're taking me for. Now, some of you guys that are a little older, been in this game like I have for a little while, you realize, you do remember the days when a dealership was be expected to get $3,000, $3,500 on your trade. That was what was expected, about $3,000 on a trade. Now, as I've said before, that average is closer to $8,000. Fortunately, Franklin was only $7,500. They didn't even hit the average. But that $8,000 is the average that they are going to rob you for on your trade-in vehicle. What they give you versus what they sell it for, we keep seeing it time and time again. I don't care what KBB says. I don't care what anybody says. The real world dealership stuff we're seeing is around $8,000. So you think about it. He lost $8,000. They lost $8,000, she lost $8,000, they lost $8,000, $8,000, $8,000, $8,000, and it just goes around. Every one of these people traded it in for $8,000 less than they did. Or you could say it this way. Here's another way of looking at it. Every one of these used vehicles here, when it sells, is worth $8,000 in profit. Okay, every single one of these, just as an average, $8,000 in profit. Remember, that was not an expensive vehicle. Okay, that van brand new was like $44,000, $45,000. It was not a very, so again, you would expect them to be making more profit on something like this. Something is a $70,000, $80,000 truck, you're expecting more profit than even that. But so maybe they're making $10,000 on that one. But think about the sheer numbers of what a dealership is actually pulling in on used vehicles. Okay, what they're actually rolling in, how well they're doing. And then we think about how much money they make on a new. It's kind of interesting and puts it into perspective. That's a whole nother story and a whole bunch of videos we talk about. But many people are not aware of that on this used side. That you think, that, well, they gave me this much money for it. But then if you take your vehicle when you trade it in and go look up what they put it back on the website for, it will piss you off. You will be mad. I knew the game. I already knew this. We've talked about this in many videos. I knew exactly what they were going to do. And believe it or not, when I looked it up, I kind of went, it's actually a little better. I thought they would have actually listed it for more. Because, like I said, average that I see is about $8,000. They did it at $7,500. Crazy when you think about the reality of that, isn't it? Here's a ZR2, like Tina's. Right there is Tina's ZR2. Here's one right here. So this guy here, he probably lost somewhere in that $8,000 range trading this truck in versus what he could have got if he sold it privately. Okay, is it worth it sometimes? Well, don't forget, Georgia is one of the tax credit states. So here, if you trade a vehicle in, which most are trade-ins, mine was a unique one because it was an inheritance, we were just selling it. But when you talk about a trade-in vehicle, it gets pretty interesting because you get the tax credit. Okay, so they're going to even sometimes be a little crazier because a lot of Georgia dealers try to steal your tax credit. So let's say you were going to trade this in and you were going to get $30,000 for this truck on trade-in, and you were going to buy a new truck for $50,000. In Georgia, your $30,000 trade-in comes off of the taxable amount of your new $50,000 truck, which means you only pay tax on $20,000 of your $50,000 truck because of your trade-in. Many states do that, but here in Georgia, a lot of dealerships, they know that, and they're like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I understand that Carvana was going to give it to you, and they were going to give you $32,000, but we're only going to give you $30,000 because with us you get the tax credit, where with Carvana you do not get the tax credit because the tax credit only applies to the dealership you buy your new vehicle from. It's the only way you can get it. You can't trade this in to sell to Carvana and get the tax credit at this dealership. They have to be at the same dealership. Dealers know that. So they're like, yeah, Carvana would give you 32, but we're going to give you 30, and you're going to actually save maybe another $100 in your tax credit, so it's smarter to just do it this way. In essence, the dealerships are stealing your tax credit on top of ripping you off by about $8,000 on your trade-in value. Pretty crazy when you put it into perspective on how all of this works. I am curious as to your thoughts and to your experiences. What have you seen with yours? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one that when I get rid of a vehicle, or I trade one in and I get to go see what they list it for. I'm sure I'm not the only one that does that. I'm curious what you have. What have you seen with your recent deals that you've got? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, thanks for watching.